There was an eerie weight to the passage of time when it came to my relationship with Uncle Richard. In the early glow of my youth, Uncle Richard was a fixed presence. He was as constant as the summer sun, sharing candy, spinning stories, and making me believe in a world beyond my own. Yet, as 6-year-old me transformed into a teenager, the light of his presence dimmed, a shadow looming. Gone were the days of bi-monthly visits. It became a game of odds to glimpse him even once in a decade. By the time my 20s rolled around, he was no more than a ghostly remnant, a fleeting memory. The day that old rotary phone in my apartment rang, jolting me from a deep slumber, and I heard his voice on the other end, a shiver coursed through my spine. There was something gravely urgent in his tone, and as he spoke, my heart plummeted. The man's life was tethered by the fraying threads of time, the years of indulging in the fatal dance with cigarettes coming back to haunt him. With a heavy sigh, he uttered an offer I couldn't refuse, not out of obligation, but genuine concern. An offer to fly me out to the secluded ranch he now called home. The ranch lay isolated, its expansive lands stretching beyond what the eyes could see, distancing itself from the nearest neighbor by at least 20 miles. Why would a man choose such solitude? I pondered, as I stood at his doorstep, memories of our shared past a dull ache in my heart. My fist rapped gently on the wooden door, and when it creaked open, the man standing before me bore little resemblance to the once sprightly Uncle Richard. The ravages of time and illness had sculpted a different visage. We caught up over stale childhood snacks, with me trying hard to mask my distaste. The once beloved treats no longer held their allure. The atmosphere in the room grew dense as he hesitated, the gravity of the situation pressing down on us. "Nephew," he began, careful to keep my identity hidden for reasons only known to him. "I remember those tales of the rainforest you'd chatter about as a kid, and now you've become its savior. But tell me, do you believe in the monsters of yore?" His question startled me. Monsters? My mind raced, confused. Yet, before I could muster an answer, he posed another query, one that struck a chord. "Do you believe every species, even the mythical ones, deserve salvation?" As I fumbled with a response, Richard moved swiftly, retrieving his rifle. My eyes widened. Why would we need weaponry? My father had once trained me, but the weight of a gun felt alien, especially in such perplexing circumstances. "You may not need it," he said cryptically, "but better safe than sorry." Without further ado, we set about loading his truck with supplies enough for months. All the while, a lingering dread built up inside me, fueled by uncertainty and the mystery of what awaited us at our undisclosed destination. Our journey progressed in almost unsettling silence, until Uncle Richard broke it with an unexpected question. "Nephew, ever heard of Bigfoot, Sasquatch, and all those tales?" He glanced my way with a knowing smirk. I couldn't help but chuckle. "You mean the legendary ape man the town folks were all about a decade ago?" Our tiny town had once been abuzz with whispers of a Bigfoot sighting. It was our 15 minutes of fame, albeit restricted within town boundaries. It never did spread beyond. "Exactly. Those stories," he continued, eyes trained on the road, "echo similar tales from Native American lore, suggesting a shared reality." "I get that," I replied, intrigued. "But if they're real, why hasn't anyone caught them on camera properly? Given our population, even if there were a tenth of us as Sasquatch, we'd have evidence, wouldn't we?" Richard exhaled deeply, his fingers drumming on the wheel. "That, my boy, is the million-dollar question. Why haven't we? The truth is more unsettling than you'd imagine. These creatures were nearly hunted to extinction by people like me." His confession hung heavily between us. I waited for the punchline, for him to break into a laugh, signaling the climax of an elaborate joke. But it never came. "After my military days," he explained, "I was tapped for a covert operation. Experienced as I was, the promise of hunting a unique quarry and the incentive of money was hard to resist." He cleared his throat, the weight of memories pressing down. While some speculated wild theories, organ harvesting, cloning for warfare, the Bigfoot being a superior race, the real reason was far more mundane: territorial disputes. These beings, often docile, grew aggressive on their lands. To avoid public uproar, the government masked the operation, and I was excellent at it. He paused, his gaze far away. 339. That's the number of Bigfoot I took down. I thought I was just ridding the world of another dangerous creature, until one day, deep in the woods, I had a chilling encounter. The vividness of his recollection was palpable. Alone, I was tracking two of them. One took me by surprise. It was just dumb luck that saved me. The other, though, led me on a chase, taking its last breaths some 20 minutes later. Following its trail back, I stumbled upon a discovery that haunts me till this day. Uncle Richard's voice wavered, his eyes moistening. A child, nephew, a Bigfoot child. It wasn't the sight of it that shook me, but the sounds it made. Words, cries for its mama. Those cries mirrored your infant babbles that once echoed in my ears. You, my darling boy, uttering your first words while cradled in my arms. His voice dropped to a near whisper, laden with remorse. That's when the dam of realization broke. I wasn't a hero saving humanity from beasts. I was a monster. I had snuffed out a potentially intelligent species, and that child, its cries became the haunting dirge of my deeds. I left that life behind, hoping to distance myself from those dark memories, which probably explains my long absence. As the weight of his confession settled, the journey felt infinitely longer. Uncle Richard's narrative came to a gentle pause as we found ourselves in a secluded clearing. The tranquility of the spot juxtaposed sharply against the gravity of our conversation. He handed me the rifle, a piece of cold metal, heavy with significance. Stepping out of the vehicle, he turned toward me, his face a canvas of earnest emotion. There's something you need to understand about these creatures, and why some believe them to be our superior. I had initially mistaken their abilities for telepathy, but upon further investigation, I found they communicate using a unique sound wave. It's a frequency we humans can't perceive, but using specialized equipment, we discovered this form of communication. When one of them senses danger, they can immediately send out an alert, warning all those within a 100-mile radius. He then produced a peculiar-looking flute from his pocket. Are you familiar with a dog whistle? This instrument works similarly. The gravity of the situation weighed upon me, my mind dizzied with questions. Was this a twisted yoke? Was the severity of his ailment clouding his judgment? Uncle Richard blew into the flute, and an eerie silence settled around us. Every rustle of leaves, every distant birdsong became a source of heightened anticipation. Just as doubt began to creep in, questioning the sanity of this entire endeavor, I glimpsed movement from the corner of my eye. There it was, a looming figure whose portrayal in drawings and footage I had previously seen came eerily close to reality. Towering nearly 8 feet tall, its resemblance to apes was undeniable, except for its strikingly human face. The thought of my uncle hunting these sentient beings sent shivers down my spine. The creature advanced, pausing every few steps. Locking eyes with me, its deep, garbled voice pierced the silence. Who is he? That's my nephew, Uncle Richard replied, indicating me. His voice cracked as he spoke to the creature. I've provided for you, but my time is running short. He will look after you when I'm gone. Tears streamed down my uncle's face, revealing a vulnerability I'd never witnessed. If you want vengeance, take it now. I was the one who killed your parents. My grip tightened on the rifle as the creature raised its hand, ready to deliver a fatal blow. But Uncle Richard's next move shocked me. He held out his hand pleadingly, signaling for me to hold my fire. What transpired next was an act of mercy I hadn't anticipated. The creature pointed towards my uncle, uttering a single word, Mama. The realization hit Uncle Richard like a tidal wave, drenching him in regret. We departed soon after, with the weight of the revelations pressing heavily upon us. My anger was palpable. You were willing to die by its hand? I questioned. It's not it, it's he, Uncle Richard corrected gently. Helping him is my meager attempt at redemption. Though I've taken away so much from him, I want to protect him now. He's alone, and the world isn't kind to his kind. Your role is to ensure he remains hidden, to provide for him. Why hand me the rifle then? I queried, still grappling with the reality. I feared he might target you for revenge, for the atrocities I committed against his kin, Uncle Richard confessed, the weight of his guilt evident in his eyes. But it seems I was mistaken. He bears no ill intent, at least not toward you. The rest of the journey was a contemplation of life, legacy, and the lines we cross, from which there is no return. The journey back was filled with introspection. As the dense trees flanked the roads and the world outside blurred into a green haze, my mind was caught in a whirlwind of thoughts. If roles were reversed, would I have done the same? I pondered. There was a certain nobility in the creature, a profound integrity that surpassed my understanding. The realization was startling. The true monsters weren't these so-called Bigfoots, but us, the humans. The monsters my uncle alluded to weren't lurking in forests, but walking in daylight, guilt-free, their hands stained with the blood of the innocent. So, what's expected of me? I finally broke the silence. The glint in my uncle's eyes was unmistakable. It was a blend of hope and desperation. Will you take up this mantle? Will you protect him? In an effort to ensure the creature's safety, my uncle confided his assets, totaling $12 million, and the ranch to my care. Such wealth, accrued from hunting Bigfoots, was more than sufficient to maintain the land. While employing help was an option, discretion was imperative. The risk of gossip was too high. 3 months later, under the amber glow of the setting sun, I held my uncle's hand as he took his final breath. He couldn't bring himself to confess to a clergyman. Instead, he laid bare his soul to me, and I became the custodian of his darkest truths. Years passed, and life on the ranch evolved into a rhythm. Each day brought its own set of challenges, but a notable incident disrupted this cadence. On one of my supply trips to meet Lara, the creature, silhouettes trailed behind him, hinting at the existence of a family. There stood a figure slightly shorter than him, and another, much smaller, suggesting a partner and a child. The intricate call, unique to their kind, must have bridged their distances. Though words were sparse, the joy in his eyes spoke volumes. Yet, as heartwarming as these moments were, a pressing concern gnawed at me. The widespread enthusiasm for Bigfoot hunting, not the kind my uncle indulged in, but mere fascination with these beings, was alarming. I felt compelled to convey a message to the seekers, the believers, and the skeptics. To the hopeful adventurers and curious souls, your pursuit, while genuine, might inadvertently endanger them. The myths and purported sightings you come across more often than not are elaborate fabrications. Some of them might even be the government's machinations to discredit authentic encounters. The pressing need of the hour isn't discovery, but preservation. My efforts, although consistent, cannot preserve an entire species. The real solution is public awareness, shedding light on hidden governmental agendas and underhand strategies. While many might dismiss my accounts as fantastical tales, I urge the believers to protect these creatures. Should you ever come across traces, or perhaps encounter them, offer them food, but maintain a respectful distance. Their history with humankind warrants their caution. In the grand tapestry of life, every thread, every narrative, every song intertwines and harmonizes. But the harmony is only maintained when we recognize and respect each note, each voice, and ensure that it continues to resonate, undisturbed. In the weeks that followed my uncle's revelations, I found myself wrestling with my new role as the guardian of such ancient, hidden beings. The Bigfoot, or as they prefer to be called, the Old Ones, lived in seclusion, wary of humanity's cruel tendencies. However, in time, a tentative trust began to form between us. They communicated in a symphony of deep sounds, gentle gestures, and on occasion, English words they had picked up. And with each interaction, I felt an increasing responsibility to not just safeguard them, but to bridge the chasm between our worlds. One evening, as the sun set painting the skies in hues of lavender and gold, I sat by the edge of the clearing, waiting for Lara. He approached, accompanied by his partner and child, their silhouette framed by the tree's shadow. We didn't need words to communicate. The gratitude in their eyes and the gentle nod of acknowledgement said everything. It wasn't just a thank you for the food or protection, but for understanding, for being one of the few humans who recognized their rightful place in this world. As months turned into years, the bond between us grew. News about the old ones started to circulate, but instead of fear and hunting parties, a wave of intrigue and advocacy arose. Conservation groups, wildlife experts, and even local communities came forward, committed to preserving the habitat and stories of the old ones. They weren't just folklore anymore. They were living, breathing reminders of a time when man and nature lived harmoniously. One day, as I was reminiscing about the stories my uncle had shared, a realization dawned upon me. Our true legacy isn't in the secrets we keep or the treasures we amass, but in the connections we build and the understanding we foster. By sharing my uncle's story and the truth about the old ones, I wasn't just preserving their legacy, but crafting a new narrative for future generations, one where every creature, no matter how mysterious, has its song heard and respected.